Today, we're going to talk about what it looks like when you're always the afterthought, when people don't check on you until the last minute, when your needs aren't factored in until after everything else has been decided. I know it hurts. It chips away at your spirit. And at some point, you might start asking, why am I never on anybody's mind? Why does it seem like I only matter when it's convenient? But here's the hard part, and I want you to hear me because I'm saying this with love. Sometimes, before you were an afterthought to them, you were already an afterthought to you. And that's what we're getting into today. I want us to look at how we show up for ourselves and how that energy sets the tone for what we accept from everybody else. We're going to be talking about what it feels like to be someone's afterthought and how that pattern becomes familiar. Then we're going to look inward and talk about the ways that we might be our own afterthought. We're going to explore the contradiction of asking to be a priority when we don't treat ourselves like one. And then we're going to unpack why it can feel comfortable and safe to be in that role. Then we're going to close with a shift because I want to always leave you with a good takeaway that you can apply in real time. Something that you can actually do that's deeper than just take care of yourself, because we didn't heard that all before and it's very vague. But we're going somewhere else. So let's get into it. We're so aware of it when it's happening, when we're not invited until the group chat has already popped off, right? Or you get the text after the plan is made, or they ask you how you feel, but not while they're doing the thing. And in romantic relationships, being an afterthought hits harder because that's where most of us carry the deepest longing, right? That's where our desire is really clear, that we want to be considered to be central. And maybe your partner makes plans without checking in, or they don't think about what you need. They assume you'll adjust because that's what you do. They enjoy being with you, but you're not necessarily woven into their vision. You're just slotted in. And it hurts to recognize that you're being remembered late. It starts to feel like you're just in the default position and you don't feel loved, right? Been there, done that, by the way. But listen, this dynamic can show up anywhere. You know, it's really important for us to know that while romantic relationships, and most of the work that I do is around romance and stuff, but romantic relationships are not the only relationships that matter. Every relationship matters. It's just that we've been conditioned to focus our attention there. And so that's often where our pain reflects. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's where all the pain hits. But that's why I'm talking about this through the lens of romance. But I do want you to know that being an afterthought doesn't just show up in romantic connections. It shows up in friendship. It can show up at work. It can show up with family. And as a midlife woman, we often tend to notice it. We notice it a lot more at this stage. And of course, it's often amplified in our romantic partnerships. And that's because the bond between you and a partner often reflects your early emotional blueprint, because it's the connection you wanted with your parent. It's the care you craved, but you didn't have language for. And when this pattern plays out in adulthood, of course it feels familiar. But again, familiar isn't always good. I always say that, but it's true. Familiar is not always good. But this is the part we don't always recognize. Sometimes we attract people who don't just mirror our childhood. They mirror how we already treat ourselves. I'm going to say that again. Sometimes we attract people who mirror how we already treat ourselves. We put our own needs on hold. We stretch ourselves thin to support everybody else. We deprioritize joy, rest, and desire. And then we're asking, why doesn't anybody think about me? Hello? The real question is, when was the last time you centered yourself? Another thing I really want to be clear about is this doesn't just happen with women who stay quiet. It also happens to women like myself who are vocal and direct and honest and clear. There are women who ask for what they need out loud. They are willing to say the hard thing. They are willing to go there. I want to feel considered. I want to be thought of. I want to be prioritized. And still, they too get treated like an afterthought. It isn't because they're not asking. It's because they're with people who either don't have the capacity or have never had to stretch in that direction. So let's not confuse clarity with guarantee, because everything's a spectrum. So there are people who say nothing. There are people who say everything out loud. Most of us fall somewhere in the middle, although I have to say I'm on the say everything out loud end of the spectrum. But a lot of people fall in the middle, but that doesn't change the experience. You can communicate beautifully and still be bypassed, which is heartbreaking. Sometimes it's not that we're asking for too much or too little. Sometimes we're just asking the wrong person. But that's an episode for another day. The thing is that sometimes, being in the background or being an afterthought, it feels like less work. It feels like less work because it's less vulnerable. Being a forethought, being centered and prioritized also includes being seen. It means being honest about what you want. It means risking disappointment. And so we lower the stakes. And sometimes we say it's fine. It's whatever works for you. Or we speak up and say, I need this, that, and the other. And then they don't do it. And we're just like, okay. And we settle into that. But again, the shrinking isn't just showing up in how we're relating with other people. It's often a pattern for how we relate to ourselves. So if you've been an afterthought for so long that you don't even know what it feels like to be centered, I want you to start here. I want you to start making decisions that do not rely on someone else waking up. Not decisions out of anger or revenge, but out of self-loyalty. And that means we're going to stop waiting around for them to plan the weekend. We're going to stop clearing our calendar so that it's wide open just in case somebody wants to invite us somewhere. We're going to stop negotiating with people who have already shown that they do not center us. So start booking the thing. Start making the plan. Start becoming the main character in your own life. And yes, it is going to include grief. You are probably going to have to grieve the fantasy. You're going to grieve the loss of hope that they're going to change. But that's all right, because grief is sacred and grief is necessary. Grief is a rite of passage. It makes room for clarity, and clarity makes room for joy, and that's what we're going for. In closing, I want you to know that you don't have to prove you're worthy of being considered. You don't have to keep explaining why your needs matter. But you do have to stop putting yourself last, because love is recognizing that you are the center of your own universe. Everything in your life orbits around you. And it's also true that other people are the center of their own universe too. But when you center yourself, it makes it easier for the people around you to consider you, to attune, to move with the awareness that the ecosystem that you share with them includes consideration for all parties involved. Whew. I'd love to hear how this lands for you, because I think there are a lot of us who have been afterthoughts, myself included. So I'd love to hear from you. You're always welcome to send me an email at Stacey@staceyherrera.com. And if you have some suggestions for future episodes, there's a link in the show notes where you can leave those for me. I read my own stuff. Until next time, I love you.